What's going on, everybody? It's Aurora YJ here, coming at you with my top 5 meta decks for the November 2021 format, and I am super excited to bring you guys this list because we are in a really healthy format right now. You can see success with just about anything you want, as long as it's like somewhat viable. With this in mind, please note that it won't be showcasing all of the current viable decks of the format. If you want to see something similar, check out my tier list up in the top right hand corner for November 2021. It's doing absolutely amazing. I recommend you check it out if you haven't. This list mainly shows the current top 5 based on statistics and a little bit of my opinion sprinkled in here and there. And with that in mind, just please know that this isn't a definitive list. This is just going by how things are doing right now in the online spectrum, and also based on like a little bit of my own personal bias. So don't get too heated if your favorite deck that's in this list isn't on here or in the right spot. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So starting us off at number 5, we have Drytron, and this may surprise a lot of you due to how prominent Drytron has been in the past few formats, but the deck really hasn't been in favor as much right now, especially since the last EVA limit. The deck has a win rate of about 55% over on YGO and isn't really seeing as much representation as the other top decks, really. We also have to keep in mind cards such as Droll are seeing a lot of main deck play this format, including Nib as well. And also, Fluanderies and Sword Soul can kind of just main D-Shifter, so I mean, D-Shifter kind of shuts down Drytron entirely. However, this doesn't stop the deck at all from being quite oppressive at points, because Herald of Ultimateness is still a card, like what the fuck. And of course, when combined with things like IP Masquerena, maybe a few hand traps like Orange Light, even the most skilled players, if their hand isn't good enough, might not be able to break through that. And so there's really nothing keeping the deck from being too crazy. However, it's just slowly starting to lose representation compared to a lot of the other decks, because in terms of the money, it's probably not worth it. They also have the ability to play through multiple single-use hand traps, and guess what? If you can't kill them or break, like even after breaking their board, they can just do their entire turn all over again, because the Drytron cards work engrave, and all you need is that one name on field or in hand. So really, Drytron isn't a bad deck whatsoever, and so I wouldn't be surprised if you end up seeing 1 or 2 popping up at your locals, but it will be starting us off at the number 5 spot. Rising up at number 4, we have Eldritch variants. Now, shockingly enough, Eldritch is doing quite good on the online scope. We have a win rate of 58% for this deck, and it genuinely was a lot more than I expected. But you do have to think that Burst of Destiny has given us cards like Lord of the Heavenly Prison, which is kind of bonkers for trap decks right now. You can play like almost any trap deck with Heavenly Prison Heavenly Prison, that's what his name is. I keep forgetting that his name was changed. And you can see a lot of success. Not only does he protect your back row, like all of your floodgates and everything, but he also just searches you new stuff. Do I smell Imperial Order, anyone? Eldritch also has the benefit of being able to play as an engine with a lot of other decks like Shaddoll, Invoked, Despia, Dogmatica, all sorts of stuff. And so it's going to be a lot harder to side when you don't know exactly what package they're playing along with it, because most people aren't playing pure Eldritch. With cards like the Solemns, Ice Dragon's Prison, Skill Drain, Imperial Order, and the new Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer out of Burst of Destiny, it's very unlikely that Eldritch is going to be going anywhere anytime soon, so don't be surprised if you go to locals, sit down, and your opponent just sets 5 and passes. Here in number 3, we have Virtual World. Now, Virtual World is really interesting because it's always been a strong deck since release. However, it has slowly been falling out of favor until now, because with Burst of Destiny being released, we now have a card that can kind of boost the deck if you choose to play it, and that is Small World. Now, Small World helps a lot of different decks, and while it's not mandatory to play in a deck like Virtual World, it can prevent it from killing itself due to bricking a lot. And so, what you can do, for example, say you have an extra Lao Lao in hand, or you don't want the Lao Lao in hand, maybe it's dead, you can always activate Small World, banish it, reveal Nyan Nyan, banish it, and then add a free Lulu from your deck to your hand, which is really crazy. Not to mention that the cards you banish off of Small World are completely irrelevant, because Nyan Nyan can shuffle it back. Honestly, it really just cements Virtual World as the deck that keeps on grinding, because it can just infinitely recur its resources with things like Nyan Nyan, Chuchi, all sorts of stuff. And so Small World definitely gives the deck a boost. However, it is still incredibly strong without the card. Shen Shen is really hard for a lot of decks to get over right now, not to mention when you combine it with something like Crystal Wing, Dragoon, Chu-Chi, all sorts of stuff like that. And so Virtual World is probably also not going anywhere anytime soon. The deck, if it does have a decent hand, it can just keep on going and going and going, and you're going to have a really hard time getting through their board if they just keep on committing some resources, because they can always get those resources back and do the exact same thing next turn. The deck is still all around well balanced, really fun to play, and overall solid in general, so you're probably going to be seeing it everywhere, especially with all these Megaton reprints, so be prepared for that. Now we have number 2. You know it, you hate it, he and the gang probably aren't going anywhere anytime soon. We have Dogmatica Invoke Shaddoll. Boy, oh boy. People really just don't get tired of normal summoning Alistair, do they? Jokes aside, it's really no surprise that this deck is seeing a lot of success in play right now because, believe it or not, Winda still kills a lot of decks, and the sheer longevity and consistency of this deck is absolutely insane. If there's one deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! That I could warn you never to get into a grind game against, it's Dogmatica Invoke Shaddoll, because you'll be sitting there burning out of resources while the opponent is literally just activating Invocation or specialing Ecclesia until their fingers fall off. The deck's real power also comes in the fact that they are 3 different engines that, while they synergize together, also don't need each other. They can feed off each other for more power, however, they can all function separately. If you open only Invoke stuff, you can go for a free Mechaba. If you open only Shaddoll stuff, if you are playing the main deck Shaddoll stuff, you can just sit on a Winda. If you only open the Dogmatica stuff, well, funnily enough, I'm pretty sure that just leads you into Winda as well on top of Dogmatica stuff, but, you know, regardless. Combine this with a bunch of hand traps and floodgates and back row, and yeah, unless we see a meltdown hit, Alistair isn't going anywhere for a long time. Before we get to the top slot, as always, I do want to give some honorable mentions. Dragon Link is still an incredibly strong deck right now. However, with the inclusion of stuff like Droll, Nibiru, Lightning Storm, and Forbidden Droplet in the main deck, it does struggle a bit to achieve its full combo potential, and playing it as mid-range usually also doesn't lead to a very strong enough board to actually out any of the top decks right now. And not to mention that if the board is broken, the deck just doesn't have too much follow-up unless you have like a Rocket Synchron, but even then, you really can't do much other than make a Link 2 or a Synchro monster. And so, unfortunately, it is still in the honorable mention slot. Maybe we'll see it come back again someday. Hopefully not, I'm actually really tired of Dragon Link. Sword Soul and Fluanderies are still incredibly cool decks. However, we still do not have enough data on it for me to properly put it in this list, even though I did put it on my tier list. So maybe next list, actually probably next list in December, we'll probably see them somewhere in the top 5, at least one of them. So stay tuned for that, but for now, unfortunately, they are going to stay in the honorable mentions. Finally, the Phantom Knights deck is just barely out of this list, because with the inclusion of Destroyer, Phoenix, Enforcer, the deck is definitely a lot stronger. However, it just kind of doesn't keep up with the top decks as much in terms of consistency, follow-up, stuff like that. And so we'll probably end up seeing it sometime after either the next ban list, depending on how hard they hit the meta, or when the Brave Token engine finally comes out, because I know Brave Token, Phoenix, Enforcer, Phantom Knights is kind of stupid, so stay tuned for that as well. Another thing before we hit the number 1 slot is that I want to say, if you've liked the video so far, please be sure to leave it a like, because it helps put this video and the channel into the YouTube recommended, pushes all the videos into the algorithm. And if you really want to support me as an up-and-coming YouTuber, we've been doing amazing lately, and I want to keep pushing and striving towards the top, perhaps consider subscribing, because it supports me more than anything else, costs you absolutely nothing, and is absolutely amazing for the state of the channel. But without further ado, I'm sorry for rambling for so long. Let's go ahead and get into the number 1 slot for the top 5 decks of the November 2021 format. Finally, we've reached the number 1 slot of our list, and if you guys haven't already guessed it, it's Sky Striker. No, not funny? Okay. Yeah, no, it's Tri-Brigade. I thought that was pretty obvious by now. Of course, with practically no hits on the last Forbidden Unlimited list despite a slap on the wrist and the introduction of the Bird Women in Synchro Storm, Tri-Brigade is at an all-time peak right now and probably won't be coming down for a long time. Hey everybody, it's Future Aurora here, somehow an even crappier quality than before, and I just wanted to mention that I was having a lot of Premiere Pro issues with this very specific section of the video, like this specific, like, 10 seconds. It kept, like, messing with my disc percentage and stuff, and it was crashing a lot, so I have to replace it now. So basically what I was going to say in the video is that the Lyrilusc engine of the Tri-Brigade strategy helps the deck immensely with their end board, usually ending off on a 4 to 6 material ensemble for bouncing summons, a Draco Future in Appaloosa, not to mention a bunch of hand traps and back row like that. But anyways, I hope this finds the video well and blends in, and I hope you all enjoy watching the rest of it. See you there. While the deck itself is not incredibly oppressive like something like Drytron, the deck is extremely consistent and able to keep looping its turns over and over. They have really strong boss monsters that can trigger their effects whenever they're sent to grave from anywhere. Same with their main deck monsters. Who thought this deck was a good idea? Oh yeah, did I mention that the full Lyrilusc combo with Tri-Brigades actually plays through Nibiru like a grain of sand in the wind? Yeah, hand traps usually don't do very much to this deck unless it's Delancia. Anyways, it's no surprise that Tri-Brigade is still sitting on the throne at the #1 spot of this list, and you know what? I honestly don't mind. Now, this may be because I'm starting to get a little bit based and beast-pilled myself because I am starting to build Bird up, but the deck is honestly fine overall, and I would rather play against it 1,000 times than play against Sky Striker even once, because unlike Sky Striker being an incredibly annoying, bothersome, repetitive deck in Eternal format, this deck always finds a way to spice things up because you can play this with literally any BBW engine in the entire game. Did I mention Ojamas were beasts? Take that in. Tri-Brigade Ojamas. That's probably a thing somebody made somewhere. Yeah, live with it. Sleep tonight. I dare you. Overall, I'm perfectly fine with the deck having another format or two to shine. Maybe not in top spot, maybe in top spot. Who knows, but that's just my opinion. Let me know your guys' down in the comments below because I really do want to hear your opinions. I really want to see some engagement because other than that, that's going to have to do it for the video. Thank you all so much for watching my top 5 decks for the November 2021 format for Yu-Gi-Oh! If you enjoyed it, please be sure to leave a like on the video. Again, it does help push the video into the recommended more than anything. And then also, if you really want to support me and you want to see more awesome Yu-Gi tubing content like this, perhaps consider subscribing because it's absolutely free and it supports me more than any other thing you can do. We've been very good in terms of our subscriber growth lately. Absolutely exploding. We're on the verge of hitting 400 by like the end of the week of me recording this video, and that's kind of insane. So I'm hoping to push for maybe 500 by the end of the month. So I really can't do that without your guys' support, so I do recommend just go ahead and click that little red button down there. It really does support me. But for now, once again, that is going to do it for the video, and thank you all so much for watching. This is Aurora, signing off.